Namaskar, good afternoon. You're watching Newzify and I'm Swati Joshi. Let's begin the broadcast with this big breaking news coming in on the broadcast. Donald Trump, the US president, says that the MOU with Iran, that the ceasefire with Iran is over. Donald Trump was heard criticizing Iran, hitting out at Iran, calling Iranians a bunch of liars. Ceasefire collapses confirmed by the US president now. So Donald Trump, hitting out at Iran, has said that Iranians are sick. He was, of course, talking about the leadership there, calling them a bunch of liars. Donald Trump says that the memorandum of understanding with Iran is over. Remember, this memorandum of understanding that was designed to ensure that the conflict ends, that was designed to ensure that there is lasting peace between both the nations, that opened a 60-day negotiation period, was welcomed by the world leaders, but then everyone had their reservations about this ceasefire, which was described as a fragile ceasefire. Donald Trump today has said that it's over. This memorandum of understanding with Iran is over. Let's first listen to that and then we'll connect with our colleagues as well.
Powerfully last night.
And I want to thank Mark. He's been a great Secretary General of NATO. I'm not happy with NATO because of what they did with Greenland. And I'm not happy with NATO because of the fact that they didn't want to help us with the #1 state sponsor of terror. That's Iran. They were unwilling to help us. Now, in all fairness, I didn't speak to Mark about it. I think if I did, it might have been different. But we didn't need help.
20-1.
But I was really testing. I wanted to see whether or not they'd be there. And the answer is they were. I spoke to Germany. I spoke to France. Spoke to UK. Spoke to Italy. I didn't speak to Spain. Spain is a wasted cause. We don't want to do any trade business with Spain anymore, by the way. I'd like you to cut it out. Spain is a terrible partner in NATO. They don't participate. They don't pay. I don't want anything to do with Spain. Cut off all trade with Spain, please, including visits. Okay, we don't want anything to do. Watch them come running back. Oh, they'll come running back. They treat this man terribly, and this man's a good man too, a great man. They're lucky they have him. But Spain doesn't agree to anything, and you shouldn't carry him. You sort of automatically carry because you're protecting an area, so they're there. So they probably figured they have to protect us, right? But we don't have to. We don't have to trade with them. I don't want to do any more trade with them. All right? Take it immediately. Don't even talk to them. They're hopeless. Bad people, because, you know, they have everybody else going and paying and working. In particular Spain, there are a couple of others, but in particular Spain, they're open about it, they're hostile about it, and let's see how hostile they remain when they call up and they, please, we want to trade with you, sir, we want to trade with you, sir. They make so much money with us, and we're going to see that they make a lot less. I want no business with them. So, other than that, we're having the big meeting in a little while, and I'm going to relate my problems. Greenland is a big problem for us, and the other big problem is the fact that when we wanted them, we didn't want them badly, but we did say, if you want to join us, and they all said no. But when they could have, they weren't there for us, and we've been there for them. We spent over $1 trillion over the last short period, in order to protect these countries from Russia. And has nothing to do with us. We have an ocean, but it's been a long-term thing, and they haven't treated us right. And Mark understands that. He understands that. And we're going to work something out, I think, one way or the other. But we've been treated unfairly. We pay disproportionately. We had a time when we were paying 100%. We were paying 100% of NATO, and yet a lot of the countries weren't paying anything.
That's the way I feel.
But there was calls made a few weeks ago. I spoke with UK, and the Prime Minister said, well, we don't want to help you now, but we'll help you when the war is done.
So Donald Trump, the US president, was speaking during the NATO leaders' meeting. He expressed how upset he was with the NATO allies, calling them out individually. Donald Trump has also said that the MOU with Iran is over. We have Akanksha, my colleague, who's getting us more details on that. This memorandum of understanding, the so-called fragile ceasefire, was signed on the 17th of June. And today, Donald Trump says it's all over. What does that mean for West Asia?
That also goes on to indicate that all the efforts that had been made by the peace mediators seems to have gone to waste. Because remember, this MOU was signed in Switzerland, and more importantly, ever since Donald Trump arrived at the NATO summit in Ankara yesterday, Swati, he had been bashing his NATO allies. He, in fact, yesterday went on to talk about how he was always standing by their side as far as the war in Ukraine is concerned, and that is not something that had been reciprocated. Today, more importantly and most importantly, he's declared that the MOU is over. We do not know, does that indicate that the US Navy will now be reimposing that naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz? But one thing is clear, that perhaps the fighting will go on at a very critical, fragile time. Why so? Because remember, dignitaries and journalists from across the globe have descended upon Iran. Today, the funeral proceedings are currently in the holy city of Najaf in Iraq. In fact, the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian had to rush back to Tehran in a tit-for-tat rhetoric that we've seen come out from both sides. Iran has gone on to accuse the United States of violating this MOU. They are saying that their rights over the Strait of Hormuz are not being respected. More importantly, they have accused the Zionist regime, or say the Israelis, of continuing to attack Lebanon. That has become a crucial bone of contention for the Iranians. So it doesn't seem like both sides are willing to take a step back. Both of them, in fact, digging their heels in. The US president very much declaring that this MOU is not holding on. He's in fact used some very derogatory language for the Iranians. But the question, look at the timing and the location of this. He's currently in the Turkish capital of Ankara. Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, seemed very supportive when he actively supported the US actions last night. But that's not the popular opinion within the other NATO allies and leading powers like Germany, France, Italy, even the UK. And this is something the US president has been actively voicing about. So NATO will certainly not be able to provide the kind of military assistance that the United States is looking towards from NATO allies. But will they be able to wield any kind of influence in holding US actions back? That is something we'll have to wait and watch in the days ahead.
Absolutely. Well, one thing as far as Donald Trump is concerned is you don't know, what he'll say next. That's how unpredictable he is. But when it comes to this issue, the West Asia conflict, both Iran and US Akanksha have been leveling these allegations against each other of not honoring the terms of the memorandum of understanding. And, in the backdrop, of course, is the fresh wave of strikes that have been witnessed in the Gulf.
Because if I just want to quickly take our viewers through what Mohammad Ghalibaf, the parliamentary speaker, had to say today on X, he's gone on to list all of those points in which Iran believes that this MOU has been violated by the Americans. He says the violation of the Iranian adjustments in the Hormuz, in the Strait of Hormuz. There's also persistent threats of further strikes, reinstating of the oil sanctions. How can we forget that? Because remember, today itself, the US has declared that they have removed that waiver that they had given to Iran as far as the oil sanctions was concerned, which means that they were back to selling oil. Then Ghalibaf has also gone on to say that they are continuing to attack Lebanon, and to them that also happens to be a crucial part and violation, because remember, the MOU has been divided into various articles, and there is a portion which in fact goes on to indicate or talk about how the US must stop the Israelis must stop attacking Lebanon. Now, can the US ensure that the Israelis will not attack Lebanon, even though the US president seems extremely miffed with the Israeli counterpart as far as the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is concerned? Remember, just 2 days ago, Netanyahu went on to say that no, J.D. Vance is wrong when he says that Israel has no friends other than the United States. We still have the Indians. So that also has been indicative of the kind of wedge that is dividing Israel and the United States. But now, with these attacks on the three oil tankers, 2 of them belonging to Saudi Arabia and 1 to Qatar, things could be back to square one as far as the situation in the Strait of Hormuz is concerned. Remember, we've seen how Iran has now gone on to attack the U.S. allies in the West Asian region as well. That includes Bahrain, that includes Kuwait as well. This at a time when our own External Affairs Minister is visiting West Asian countries. So the situation is extremely delicate and fragile. fragile. Will these attacks continue? Will there be other West Asian partners to the United States that will also be roped in? God forbid, but we cannot see the situation go back to square one, something that we had been witnessing in the months of April and May as well.
Absolutely. You know, I'm just going through the details of what Donald Trump has said. There's one other thing that we should highlight. And Donald Trump says, I'll let our wonderful negotiators keep talking if they want, but I don't see it. So how does one draw that distinction? Will United States continue to talk? Will the team of negotiators continue to engage with Iran? Because personally, I believe this is his personal opinion when he says that I don't see it, but I'll not interfere and allow the negotiators to carry on with their jobs. What does that even mean?
So, you know, it's interesting you highlight that question because whether or not Qatar and Saudi Arabia would want to get involved now, given that their own LNG tankers are getting involved, and Qatar had been playing a very critical role when it came to mediating for the peace process. Not to forget, yes, Pakistan has also been involved, and Pakistani delegation represented by their Prime Minister and the Field Marshal was very much in Tehran for the funeral proceedings of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So will Pakistan again be intervening at this crucial point? We were told that for now the ceasefire was holding till, say, at least yesterday night. The US president had also gone on to declare at a speech while celebrating and commemorating the 250 years of US independence. He had said that we are very nice people. We will wait for the funeral proceedings to take place. But ever since that attack in the Strait of Hormuz has happened, the US CENTCOM, of course, has gone ahead, and they have also been attacking Iran as well. So we'll have to see if the US president is willing to take a step back. Will the US delegation be meeting with their allies in West Asia? Will UAE be able to step in? But right now,
all right.
Turkey is playing a very critical
sorry to
role.
interrupt you, but we have Ambassador Suresh Goyal joining us on the broadcast. Thank you very much for giving us your time. What do you make of this statement coming in from Donald Trump? The US president says for him, the MOU with Iran is over. He's called them a bunch of liars, but he's also at the same time saying that he'll perhaps let the negotiators do their job, but he does not see it happening.
We have seen Trump actually vacillating between different positions, even in the past and at the moment. Frankly speaking, I do see that the USA is under pressure, both because of the depletion of resources and also because of Europe. There are pressures on with the midterm elections coming through. So I don't know whether Trump is going to stay with the same statement in the days to come. I would much rather wait for a day or two to see how it pans out really. And there could be change in positions. There will be adjustments, I'm quite certain, from both the sides, from Iran as well as the USA. And I really do not think that we need to think of a war right away.
So is this another classic Donald Trump move where he makes one statement and then, lets people guess, waits for the markets to react and then retracts?
You are right there. Absolutely. I don't need to say anything further on this. All right.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for speaking with us. Let me take that across to Akanksha. Akanksha, then, there are going to be wider implications on the entire world, on the markets as well, something that Donald Trump keeps monitoring very, very closely. At the moment, of course, Donald Trump has said that for him, the ceasefire, which was called fragile right from the start, is over. He's hit out at the Iranians, the leadership of Iran, calling them a bunch of liars. Donald Trump was visibly upset with the NATO leaders as well, and he called every single ally out. Donald Trump, of course, they're pointing out how the NATO allies maintained their distance when he called for help, when he urged the NATO allies to get involved. Donald Trump, of course, was expecting their participation, but the NATO allies one by one started distancing themselves when it comes to the West Asia conflict. And now, during the NATO leaders' meet, Donald Trump expressed his anger and his frustration, hitting out at the allies. And as far as the ceasefire is concerned, Donald Trump has said for him it's over. Now, like I said, Donald Trump also waits for the markets to react. He monitors that very, very closely. And we're given to understand we have some breaking inputs coming in on the broadcast. I don't know if this is a direct impact of what has transpired, but this is what we are reporting. The Sensex is down by over 1,400 points and the Nifty down by 470 points. So markets are at the moment down? Are they reacting and responding to what Donald Trump has said? We'll have to wait for that. We'll connect with the experts perhaps to get you a clear analysis of what's transpiring. So on one hand, you have Donald Trump saying that the MOU with Iran is over for him, but he'll allow the negotiators to do their job. On the other hand, this is what we're picking up as far as the market is concerned. Sensex down by over 1,400 points and Nifty down by 470 points. Markets reacting to every single development as far as the West Asia conflict is concerned. Remember, when that MOU was signed between America and US on the 17th of June, world leaders welcomed that move, but many had their reservations, apprehensions as far as the ceasefire is concerned, whether or not it is going to hold, whether or not both nations would perhaps be able to, get on that path of lasting peace. Today, Donald Trump says for him, the memorandum of understanding is over. He has hit out at the Iranian leaders. But in the backdrop, of course, also is the fresh wave of strikes that have been witnessed in the Gulf. So does that mean that the war or the conflict in West Asia is going to continue? Does that mean that the strikes will not just resume but also intensify? Does that mean that US is now going to ensure what Donald Trump has said transpires on ground? We don't know at this point of time. Let me go across to Hina. Hina, markets certainly are responding, but what is the reason? What are the factors?
In the morning itself, when the stock markets opened today, there was a bit of nervousness on the Lal Street that we witnessed. But ever since we got the statement from US President Donald Trump that ceasefire with Iran is over, just see the kind of fall that we have seen in stock markets. As we speak, Sensex is down close to 1,700 points and the fall has been this steep. So if we can just focus on this particular chart, this shows you that how soon after Donald Trump's statement, the markets fell sharply. And this is how it looks like. It is a sea of red literally all across sectors. Now, this is about Sensex, which is seeing a cut of almost 1,700 points. It's trading at 76,531. If you look at Nifty at this point in time, here also we are seeing a cut now of over 2%. Nifty has fallen below the crucial level of 24,000. And this is what I would like to quickly highlight. Just a little after 2 p.m., when Trump's statement came that ceasefire with Iran is over, just see how badly the markets fell. And this is largely because of what Trump has announced, because the expectation was that things are going to be back on track for the entire world. We'll start, moving towards economic reforms and things will start getting better for economies around the world. But with Trump declaring the ceasefire getting over is clearly a cause of concern for investors across the world. The Brent crude prices have gone up by over 5%. They are around $78 per barrel. As a result, the stock markets here have fallen very sharply in just few minutes. Swati.
Absolutely. So you're saying direct impact of what Donald Trump has said. For him, the MOU is over. That's what the US president says, that the ceasefire for him with Iran is over, and markets have responded to that particular statement. Hina, to stay on with us, let's shift our focus to the Prime Minister's three-nation visit. And his first visit, which was to the country of Indonesia, has concluded. Earlier, we saw the Prime Minister visit the iconic Prambanan temple along with the Indonesian president. Remember, as far as trade or business between both countries is concerned, over 14 key agreements, MOUs, have been signed between India and Indonesia. And during this entire visit, the focus was not just on strengthening the bilateral relations, bilateral cooperation between India and Indonesia, but the Prime Minister's emphasis, and we heard that during his address as well, was on the shared history and legacy between both the countries, between India and Indonesia. Now, the Prime Minister is headed to his second nation in part of this entire three-nation tour, which is Australia. The Indonesian President, Mr. Prabowo Subianto, was seen dropping the Prime Minister off at the airport. Both sides, like I said, have inked key agreements. Let's go across to Hina for more on that. Hina, what are these agreements? How does this visit of the Prime Minister look like?
Well, Swati, we know Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a three-nation tour right now. His first stop was Indonesia. His trip to Indonesia has been concluded. So let's take us through why Prime Minister's visit to Indonesia has now opened up a new market for made-in-India missiles. Reason number two, why we are saying this, is because Indonesia will be importing Astra air-to-air missiles. Apart from that, what we can tell you is that India will be investing in Indonesia's minerals. Now, this is extremely important because of the China factor here. And in fact, this reduces reliance on China for rare earth magnets as well. And that's the reason why this particular agreement becomes extremely important too. Then India and Indonesia to jointly develop Sabang port, which has got a strategic importance as well for both the countries and the entire region. Then India will also help Indonesia build its own set of EVMs. Now, that is also a very, very big takeaway from this visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Indonesia. India will also help restore the ancient Prambanan temple complex. Now, this is very, very important. And this morning only, Prime Minister Modi visited this temple complex, which has got an amazing history. It's UNESCO World Heritage Site as well. And Prime Minister Modi was also honored with Bintang Adipurna, which is the highest civilian honor that is given to anybody in Indonesia. So these are some of the reasons, or we can say some of the outcomes that we got from Prime Minister's visit to Indonesia.
Right. Absolutely. Hina, thank you for getting us the details. And the second stop in this three-nation tour, Act East tour of Prime Minister Narendra Modi is Australia. He's now headed to Australia, where the Prime Minister will be holding bilateral talks with his Australian counterpart, Mr. Anthony Albanese. Our managing editor, Zaka Jacob, spoke to the former Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, about this visit and a lot more. Take a look.
I do want to come to the Indo-Pacific now, and there is a concern here in India, particularly in the last few months, maybe in the last year, that the Quad is not so much a priority for the current Trump administration. We were supposed to have a Quad leaders summit. India was supposed to host that last year. That's not happened. Recently, the word Indo-Pacific has been dropped from the Pacific Command's name. That somehow the Asia-Pacific is less of a priority for the Trump administration, and as a result, as you said, there will be down-the-line consequences for countries like India and Australia. And more broadly, there is also a concern here that between China and America, and we saw President Trump's visit to China in May, there seems to be some kind of a new modus vivendi, and that is causing concerns for down-the-line countries, whether it is Australia, India, Philippines, I can go on. But how would you speak to those concerns?
Well, first I'd say that I'm a big fan of putting the Indo back in the Indo-Pacific and its priority in the Indo-Pacific dialogue. I'm a keen believer in the Indo-Pacific concept, and as well as a free and open Indo-Pacific, which Shinzo Abe championed, which was, I think, a motivating theme for all of us, Narendra Modi and I, when we first formed the Leaders' Dialogue with President Biden and Prime Minister Suga. So I think that it's critical that we maintain that frame. I wouldn't read, frankly, too much into language changes presently. I think these things can be quite theatrical. I don't know if I really don't think they indicate something more deep at a diplomatic level. Yeah, I think it is frustrating that there hasn't been able to be a leaders' meeting. The last foreign ministers' meeting in New Delhi, I thought was very constructive. Particularly on issues around maritime security. I thought that was its most important outcome. I think a lot of the other things they were talking around critical minerals, etc., was a restatement of work that I think that was already happening anyway. But it would be good for the leaders to meet. The electoral cycle in the United States, I think, has made that very difficult, combined with what's been happening in the Middle East. So I'm prepared to cut them a bit of slack on that. I hope they're able to perhaps draw a meeting together around the G20 or other events like that, because I really do think it is important that the leaders meet as part of the Quad. That's the whole point of the Leaders' Dialogue, because it brings the whole of government focus, not just a diplomatic focus or not just a defence focus, but one that embraces all aspects of the relationship, because the Quad is not just a defence or security dialogue. It is far more than that. And I think the economic dimension of it is really critical. And right now, I think that means mobilising capital, particularly out of Quad countries where there are deep capital markets, into resilient infrastructure throughout South Asia in particular. And because that is a supply line that we've just seen, if it's interrupted, that can cause all sorts of havoc. And you do want to ensure that there's a free and open Indian Ocean, where India clearly has a primacy.